Hey everybody, and thanks for joining me here in Crikvenica on this lovely day. It's really peaceful and quiet, the sun is shining and the waves are low and slow, if you know what I mean. If you'd like a short tour, this is it. This place is practically overcrowded when it's summer, you can't get even one towel to on this beach, but it's late December, we're getting ready for a New Year's party, and before that I decided to share 5 takeaways on The New Case for Gold by James Rickards. I've decided to read this book because guess what? I wish I had $1 each time I read you should diversify your portfolio. You should invest in gold, you should invest in stocks, in bonds, you should save money, yada yada yada. I'm all for that, but how do I invest in gold? When do I buy gold? When do I sell gold? Do I keep it for like a decade, 2 decades? I don't know. So I decided to pick up this book, learn at least the basics, and decided on this book in particular because James Rickards has written several books about investing in gold. He's been investing in gold for the past 2 decades, maybe even more, and seemed like a right choice. My first takeaway would be that if you end up deciding buying gold, you should really buy gold, like gold ounces, gold bricks if you can afford it, not some papers that say you're entitled to gold, because if you end up wanting the gold itself and all hell breaks loose, there's a possibility that the company that issued you the paper with the gold certificate might not have any gold in their possession anymore. Let's say you're too late. It's a scenario you want to avoid, so when you buy gold, buy real gold. This reminded me of web hosting overselling. So I don't know if you know this, back in 2006 until 2011 I was running a hosting company. We sold it in 2011, and in the web hosting industry it's pretty common practice, so to say, to oversell web disk space. Let's say that you have a server with a 100 gigabyte hard drive, and you sell 10 clients 10 gigabytes of disk space, and along comes 11th client also wanting 10 gigabytes, but the first 10 clients still didn't use all the disk space. Maybe they used only half of it, like 40 or 50 gigabytes. So naturally you still have a lot of disk space available on this server, so you end up selling this additional disk space that's basically oversold. It's overselling. I'm sure the gold guys also know how to do this, and maybe they have only a ton of gold, but they sold 2 tons of gold. So if you come in too late, guess what? Your gold is gone. Second takeaway would be that almost any other financial instrument beside gold is fictional and invented by humans, therefore susceptible to errors and loss in value. Gold, on the other hand, is as simple as it can be. It's a chemical element that was chosen as a form of paying ages ago. Due to its characteristics, it doesn't change form, it's not poisonous, it's rare, etc. I'm sure you've watched any documentary or movie of the 2008-2009 crisis. When people invent CDOs, ETFs, and other financial instruments, or when they pump in new money like there's no tomorrow, bad things happen. Surprise, surprise. So the gold is not susceptible to these errors because it's a chemical element, like this rock here. The rock is here and it can disappear like a Bitcoin or a fiat currency. So that's a real advantage to gold compared to financial instruments that we humans have invented. Third takeaway would be that today's society is moving away from paper cash. It rolls more and more by paying with cards, digital transactions, and even Bitcoin. Long-term advantages of gold are that it can't be hacked, it can't disappear like the zeros in your bank account, and if the ATM isn't working, gold is still a currency like any other. I can definitely testify to this. When we first started doing business, we were low on cash, and I was waiting for a client of mine who owed me money to pay the invoice that I sent him, like, I don't know, a month ago, 2 months ago. These were the times, yeah. And I waited for him to pay for the invoice so that I could pay another invoice. So one day I logged into my bank account and I saw that he sent the money and I could pay for the invoice. And that got me thinking, you know, I realized that I actually didn't see any cash. You know, I didn't see any cash, and just some numbers on the screen they changed, and then they changed on the lower end because I paid for the invoice. So this got me thinking, why doesn't somebody just add a couple of zeros to my screen and I should be good, you know? Or, you know, I'm sure you wouldn't mind somebody changing your you know, net banking, adding a couple of zeros. So that can't happen with gold, you know. People can fabricate more gold. Certainly a takeaway. The fourth takeaway would be on the price of gold. So there are certain standards. Up to the 70s, we were on the the US dollar, and basically everybody is following the dollar. So maybe saying we isn't too much far from the truth. So the dollar until the 70s was on the M1 standard. Basically it was backed by gold by 40%. And then Nixon said, you know what, we're scrapping this gold, this old relic. We're just gonna print money whenever we want to. So, and you should just believe us. That was basically the decision in the 70s. And the gold was worth around $30. And it was, so the dollar was covered with 40% by gold. If today, let's say China, which is buying a lot of gold, Russia, EU, US, they gather around and say, you know what, let's go back to the M1 standard, and then the ounce of gold would be worth around $10,000. You know, right now, ounce of gold is worth $1,100, so $1,100, give or take. It dropped a lot in the past few months, which is basically number one reason why I haven't bought gold yet after reading the book. It's still going down, and so the coming back to the fourth takeaway, if they decide to go on the M1 standard, cover the fiat currency, 40% gold, the gold ounce would be worth $10,000. And if they decide to go on the M2 standard, which means that the dollar is covered 100% by gold, then the ounce of gold would be worth a staggering $50,000. 1 ounce of gold, instead of 1,200, it would be worth $50,000. So you can see how much money they've printed in the past decade, 2 decades, when this is so, it's a ridiculous price that it would be if they change the standard. And the fifth takeaway would be to pretty much anybody who thinks that gold is an old relic and that it's not worth. I know, for example, my country, Croatia, had some gold, and they sold it. They sold it. I think it was about a decade ago, or something like that, when the Prime Minister, who is now in jail, decided to sell this gold because basically they said that the gold isn't giving any revenue. It's not bringing in any money. Well, the price of gold has risen since the 70s. So back then it was worth around $30, and in the 99 it was worth around $200, and now it's $1,200. So since the 90s it grew 300%, and since the 70s since the 90s it grew 450%, and since the 70s it grew 3,000%. So basically, if you just kept the gold bricks, you would have so much more money, including our country, Croatia, that sold old gold. So those would be my 5 takeaways. I hope the country doesn't sell this beach here. It's pretty remarkable, and hopefully it brings in some revenue for the local inhabitants. But that's pretty much it. Those would be my 5 takeaways. I hope you like this video and that we stay connected over YouTube and other social media. Take care, guys.